Hello and welcome to the preview show edition of the Blue Monday podcast, a 3 times weekly show looking into all things Ipswich Town. I'm your host, Richard Woodward, and I'm delighted to welcome back the brilliant Harry from Bath. Harry, how's it going?
All good, Rich. Good to see you as well. Interesting. We've had a few days now. We're recording on Wednesday. We've had a few days to lick our wounds after our little sojourn up to East Lancashire. I managed to stay in the West Country but you of course had the grim experience of seeing it in 3 dimensions.
I had to see it in person. Yeah.
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 How are you feeling? How are you feeling?
Well, I'm all right. Yeah. I didn't mention this on the Sunday show, but there's this kind of concept about people responding to change. There's this thing called the change curve where you kind of go through bargaining and rejection and anger, and eventually you arrive at acceptance. And our season, in terms of our predicament and likely relegation, I kind of have accepted for quite some time. So when we were talking about the reaction to the goal on Saturday as being mostly 90% of the crowd was numb and 10% were kind of really angry about it. I utterly expected it, but I hoped for more, and I guess it's the hope that kills you. But nothing of the game was particularly surprising, apart from perhaps our inability to show up, sadly. And I think we will kind of spare everyone going through the game again in detail. You can listen again to the flagship show and where we talked about that. But some things we've picked out about Enciala and maybe missing a bit more of a calming head at the centre back, and someone who's moved to not a million miles away from your neck of the woods, who's doing now with Adam Webster, and you spotted something there about maybe we miss him or how he's having an impact elsewhere.
Yeah, it's interesting. The thing I picked up was just listening to the podcast, but also reading Twitter. It was an overwhelming sense of sadness, actually, that it wasn't about anger anymore. Because, I mean, Rotherham fans were even saying it about their season. Now they're going, they're still knocking lumps out of whoever they can, but that sense of there's not a lot we can do as fans in terms of getting the owner out. You went through that brilliantly in the flagship show. In terms of what constructively can we do, you want to get behind the players. We can't influence things directly on the pitch. We can't kick the ball, but we can create the right mood and climate and atmosphere. So that's one thing we can do. But and in that sense, it's a feeling that we've done as much as we can, and we're doing we're doing our bit. And there have been flashes of anger, but there's a sense as well of not resignation, but certainly a sense of sadness. I picked that up, and I was in my bookshop on Saturday, and there were flurries, and then it would go quiet for a bit, and then flurries again, and in the quiet bits, I was just kind of tracking the game. And so I had a sense of the narrative of how the game was playing out. And walking back, I felt it as well. You just felt yourself thinking at points, well, how low can we go here?
Yes.
You just like, God, it just feels,
That was my post-match tweet, actually. It was don't people dare say things could get worse, because we've still got to play Norwich. We've still got 3 months of the season to go, 4 months even.
But that said, against that, always remember that between 4:45 and 4:45 on a Saturday is not the best time to be rational. Nobody is. Everyone's emotions at that stage are clouding their judgment. So with a few days to step back, you start picking through it and trying to understand the kind of the detail of what went wrong. A lot's been talked. We talked before in our pre-recording chat. Sorry, Rich, about who stepped up to the mark and who didn't. But one thing you absolutely were right about was Enciala for the goal. I think he did let Billy Key go. I think he was ball watching. It was just a momentary lapse, but it proved to be fatal. Big Ben, the left back comes up and nods it back across the goal again. It was so like the Millwall goal. But that was one thing, and it did bring home, because as I said, I'm getting Bristol City fans in, day out nearly, just banging on about how brilliant Webster is. We talk a lot about letting all the goals leave the club, but I do wonder, letting Webster go on top was just, it was the falsest of economies because he's still blossoming. He's still got another, he's got another dimension. And in Lee Johnson's team, which does play out from the back insofar as they do, he's thriving over there at the moment. It's quite sad.
Similar to McGoldrick as well. I think a lot of Town fans were kind of accepting the transfer would happen because 10 games into the season he'd pull up with a hamstring injury and be out for a few weeks. But I don't think that has happened either, has he? I think
we haven't got
a proper one, has he?
No, he's blossomed. No, but March is always the time when I get worried about Didsey. He's fine at the moment, but we'll see what happens in March. But it's interesting. Yeah, it's a hard one because thinking about Evans, I mean, I do think he tried to do last summer on the cheap, and I mean we'll go over him. There's more to discuss about him in the weeks to come. But to be fair to him, it is hard to think objectively in such a financially irrational league. There have been some reports this week about how the league has the amount of money which owners are putting into their clubs, and how you navigate that, I don't know. Against that, though, he definitely has been the penny pinching narrative of something I do believe. But again, in his favour, he has moved swiftly. And he has shown willing in trying to sort out the chaos of what's happened. We've got four. What are we now? We're Wednesday. We're the 9th of January. We've got 4 players in. So in that sense, there's definite momentum, and he is trying to put things right. So, but as I say, we'll probably come on to him in the questions later. But at the moment, it's still the roots of this, just as they did the season Mick came in, lie in what happened in the summer.
Yes. Absolutely right. And we went kind of through that and on Sunday, and again back through the timing and all that kind of stuff. And when we get on to Rotherham, Saturday's opponents, that was an interesting kind of microcosm for all of the stuff that kind of had gone wrong for us, despite the fact that for most of the game we were well in it and probably deserving of a lead. Just quickly on those additions then, we've got Quaner, I think we're going with his pronunciation of his surname, and Dawkins. Any observations or notes on them?
Little on Dawkins yet from Derby fans. I had a quick look over there. That seems to be the most recent team that where we can get a hook. I haven't had a look at over in the States yet, but they do like him. They rated him. They said actually underrated. He was actually very effective when he was there. He can control the ball in the middle, and he can chauffeur the ball quite well too. They feel he's a player who can, if there's an emphasis on keeping the ball up in the final third, he is that type of player. And if you have him on the left, you have Quaner on the right, and you have Will Keane in the middle, it's starting to look a bit more like a championship format. It's a sort of attack. If we're going with the one up front, you've got these two who are the thing that which they're actually offering is directness and some athleticism as well, which is something that we do need. Quaner, I've got a bit more on. Huddersfield fans had plenty to say, mostly to a Preston fan who went on because they thought they were going to get him before we came along. So that was quite nice. I think this guy's going to be memorable. Unconventional, but you'll love him. And he's okay. Yeah, exactly. He isn't great in the air, so if that's the intention, look elsewhere. There was one lovely line where it's gone. He has the magical ability. He comes with a free optical illusion. He has the magical ability for his head to move lower when he jumps for a header, which so you have to worry. Okay,
like a tortoise.
This guy could be memorable. If you want an athletic, fast, wide man who gives 100% each week and creates, he is the man. He was a brilliant creator for them last season. More assists than people like Fabregas, for example. Right up there in that sense. However, he does look the part one moment, and then at the other he drives you mad. He does run strong and direct, but not always in the right direction. He has a killer first 3 touches, no left foot, and he's never scored a header. This the lack of ability in the air. Just don't go there. He's not a striker. He's a wide player. That's how they see him. He's the best header he's ever done in blue and white was when he accidentally nutted his playoff winners' medal while celebrating. And he's this awkward and unpredictable. So some of his moves do come off. In other words, if he doesn't know what he's going to do next, the defence don't necessarily know what he's going to do next.
He gets away with it.
He gets away with it. They said he was pretty good at tracking back too. And if he gets the ball from a deep position, he can look fairly majestic getting forward, like a daddy long legs finding an open window. And finally, the other part
stuff.
they're in full front. They love him. They really do. There's a lot of affection behind these comments. They said, get him full of confidence happens, and he can go from looking like Carlton Palmer on the flank to Thierry Henry in the blink of an eye. There
Wow.
you go. There's another optical illusion for you. Anyway, so no, I think he's a goodie. I think we're going to like him. And certainly looking at what he's been saying, I think he's very motivated. I mean, Lambert talked about wanting players to come who really wanted to be here, and your sense with this guy is this guy's going to bring a stack of personality into the team as well, which is brilliant. But also the athleticism and the directness,
Yes.
which I think which we do need, because we are, as I say, we are a little bit we're full of small magic people rather than big athletic people. So
Absolutely right.
so that's Quaner. Yeah, it's good.
Do you
Should be
think
good.
they're likely to start? I think Quaner's probably more likely than Dawkins. Is that fair?
Fitness really. It depends. I wouldn't be surprised if you put them both in, actually. I really wouldn't, because against Rotherham, we will want to be on the front foot, and we want to, particularly given the way they both play, that it's not just a question of getting up to the other end of the field, but it's actually applying the tourniquet and just keeping them there. Because as we'll come on and we talk about Rotherham in a bit, they are a team that sits back. They're not a counter-attacking team, but they do form a bit of a tortoise shell in the way that they go about playing. So having them both on there with Will Keane up front it's that old thing again about getting 10 yards further up the pitch.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be surprised if all three begin, actually. I wouldn't rule it out.
And if we can keep the ball at the top end of the pitch, it's not like it's going on net, is it? So I've just before we came on, Sky was showing the Sheffield Wednesday 2-2 draw from last season, where we tried to be clever up in the final third and keep the ball to keep a hold of a 2-1 and let it go in the last minute. That was an unfortunate thing to accidentally flick over to on Sky Sports earlier. So that reminds me of if we keep the ball up the top of the pitch, it's not going in our net. So
it's not.
Fingers crossed. Shall we chat Rotherham then?
Yeah. Can we, before we get into it, can I just say this is not a winnable game? It is not a winnable game at all. Just referencing what happened with Accrington last week. If Ben is listening, and I presume he will, the winnable word is banned, and we're never going to ever use the winnable word ever again, ever. But ever.
What we did last week as well was kind of make we were highlighting Accrington's lack of options and players disappearing back to parent clubs and all that kind of stuff, and that still didn't make any difference as well. So we shall skirt around maybe some of Rotherham's squad issues as well, lest we give hope. False hope. So Rotherham probably doing as well as we probably expected at the start of the season. Not a huge amount of high-profile signings, a couple of loanees here and there, but largely it's the same squad that got promoted at the expense of Paulhurst Shrewsbury. And the second game of the season for us, and as I said, alluded to at the start, this game that we lost in the end 1-0 was a bit of a microcosm for the Paulhurst era. Era is a polite term for it. Sojourn, and some of the stuff that's followed, in that we were very much in the game for large patches. In fact, our issue about playing 45 minutes, this game we were good value for 60 minutes, I would suggest, and then Rotherham started to get into it. But a couple of things that I spotted were Enciala and Nolan were signed in the preceding week, were crowbarred straight into the starting lineup, and despite having plenty of the ball, didn't create a huge amount of clear-cut chances, and from a set piece, albeit it was the second phase of a set piece, conceded in the last minute to lose the game, contrived to drop 1 point, and probably should have been worth 3, but just couldn't finish our chances. So to me, the Rotherham game was kind of knowing what we know now, was probably a bit of an alarm call that probably quite a few of us, myself included, ignored. But lots of stuff there from that 1-0 defeat that probably we should have been worried about. So moving forward, not a huge amount of additions or changes, because that game was mid-August. I don't think a huge amount of business came in on deadline day, #deadline day, apart from Tal signing on loan, I think, from Brighton. So I don't think there's not a big depth of squad there, is there, Harry? And off the back of a 7-0 defeat to Man City and a few players with suspensions or retained to parent clubs, dare I ask if this is a good time to be playing Rotherham United? Sorry.
No,
hospital bars.
After last week, for which we are
just say
truly, we're truly sorry. It's interesting what you've just been listening to there, Rich, about the way the game played out for us. In a way, that's how the season has played out for Rotherham as well. What they have tried to do, and they will try to do this again on Saturday, is to remain in the game for as long as they can, with the view to, at the key moment, maybe striking a blow, suddenly turning the general competitiveness into a period of dominance, which they will then, even if it doesn't last all game, they will capitalize on. They will never set out to dominate a game from the first minute. They just can't do that. And if anything, when it was just going through the way they were describing the team, I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually a very cagey. That's what they'll want. They'll want a cagey first 15, 20 minutes where everything gets neutralized a little bit and it's all a bit dull and there's a nice flat pattern to the game. Whereas what we want is we want to knock their center of gravity out, knock it over the north stand if we possibly can, and just completely unsettle them and disrupt them, because that's very much how that's how they operate. A lot of their games, I mean, they haven't won many games. They did win crucially New Year's Day. They saw that as a brilliant day for them. They beat Preston. Yeah, they beat Preston, and the three below them, Bolton, Reading, and ourselves, all lost. And for them, that was thank you very much. We'll have that. I think it took them out of the bottom three, and it suddenly that sense of being in control of your destiny when that happened. But they hadn't lost a huge number of games. They hadn't won a game in 9, I think, before that, but they'd drawn something like 4 or 5 of them. So a bit like us in the early season under Hurst, they were staying in games, but just not being able to get that 1 point into the 3, which suddenly makes the whole thing, your perspective completely changes. In terms of fans' expectations, the overview, they're very happy. And bear in mind, when they went down a couple of years ago, they were saying they now have more points than in that debacle.
Yeah.
And there's something like 20. Yeah, no, exactly. No, exactly.
That was the record, wasn't it? I think that's the lowest points tally. Yeah.
Indeed, yes, yeah. They're already ahead of that in their sense. So they're feeling, it's all about expectations. And they will, I don't care. I'm at the stage now where I don't care if we deserve the points or not. It's the way they look at it. One interesting thing for them, can I just say, Rich?
Yeah.
February is an interesting time because they're playing Millwall, Wigan, Sheffield Wednesday, and Reading.
Oh wow! And
they've got a horrible run in, so they're looking now to bank what they can and get. So they were hoping, that it's just how teams see different things, see their campaigns panning out. They've got a few winnable games in the final run in, but they have got that February particularly they see as vital.
Yeah, the one thing I was just going to chip in there is that of all of the clubs kind of in that bottom 5-6 shake-up, there's not a huge amount of dysfunction there, is there? It's pretty settled. There's not got the financial issues of perhaps Bolton, and I don't know where Birmingham. They're in the top half, aren't they? But it's fairly stable there. Looks like same situation in Rotherham.
Yeah, there's nothing from that point of view. It's incremental. They've built on last year. It's all about and in their terms of their style of play as well. It's gentle progress, and they could live with. They wouldn't want it, but they could live with the relegation with a view to then spinning back around again and coming up
slightly stronger.
They're very happy with the stable setup. Warren, the manager, Paul Warren, he knows the club backwards,
and he's liked, isn't he?
He is very, very well liked. Briefly on him, there are similarities with Mick, actually. A decent man, possibly less thin-skinned, I'll add that in, who fosters a very strong collective team spirit. No time for prima donnas. We did out the bad apples and built a great spirit within the club. He knows the club backwards. He played over 250 times for them, I think it was, and he took them over. I think he replaced Kenny Jackett. He couldn't stop them going down, but then they came back and beat Hurst Shrewsbury last year in the playoff finals. They do like him. Good man manager, gets the maximum out of the players and pushes them to new limits. And again, the similarity with Mick does continue in that they talk about him being braver when the need arises and playing on the front foot more often.
Okay.
In other words, taking the game to opponents. So, but in terms of the classic managing of a squad with weaker levels of quality in the Championship, he's going about it as well as you could do, and he's got them. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a last game of the season or last 2 games of the season for them, and they're in a way half expecting that as well. Just to stay competitive and stay there or thereabouts would be what they'd be looking for. So
I don't want to kind of damn them with faint praise, but this is kind of probably a more functional version of Accrington Stanley in that tactically it's a 4-4-2 or it's a 4-4-1-1. They know
Yeah,
exactly what they're doing. They're probably well drilled, and that's
yeah,
probably good to get you out of League One, and probably
yeah,
given the standard of the bottom tier of the Championship, probably good to
yeah.
keep you there or thereabouts as well. Is that fair? That tactically there's not a huge amount of evolution there from where they're in League One, and it's functional rather than aesthetic. Is that?
Oh yeah, yeah, that's spot on. That's very brilliantly put, Rich. I really think so. Yeah, very. The piece I've been working on for Phil's site for TWTD, the section on tactics is called "On Being Hard to Beat." That's yeah,
Very Mickish.
yeah, very Mickish. They don't like it always. They talk about it. This sums it up nicely. They say the shape looks negative with one on top, but it balances the team. So they don't, they'd love to be able to play attacking 4-3-3 football, but they know if they did, they would be just sliced wide open. And in fact, against Manchester City, it again shows the model. The dam just broke earlier against Man City than it does against most Championship teams. They were 1-0 down, I think, on 43 minutes, and then they had a wobble just before half time. Eventually, City just
It's the quality of the players.
yeah, the
pretty
sheer
much full
quality.
strength,
Yeah,
wasn't it?
it was. It was. It was a no.
I
It
shudder
was a
to think
proper.
what we would have got there. Frankly.
Yeah, they replaced the thing that terrified them was when they took off Sterling and put on Sane. That was I think Guardiola. I think he's scarred by Wigan because City were beaten by Wigan last year. So I think he's that he realizes what the FA Cup is all about. He's realized this it doesn't respect anyone, that tournament. But they will start out. They'll keep things tight. And again, what you were just saying, there's an emphasis on being solid. But as I say, it can become too negative. That's the danger. They talk about playing one up top with a full busy midfield behind supporting the striker. So yeah, you can see them play. You can see them and Accrington in the same continuum, as it were. But obviously they're an upgraded version of. They're doing what Accrington are doing, but they're doing it with slightly more quality. Yeah.
The 1-0 game then from the start of the season against us, it was a 4-4-2.
Yeah.
We before we came on, we kind of talked about the centre back pair, which
Yeah.
was Ajayi and Wood on that day. There's a couple of options there. They've been rotating, but generally Vine is a question mark, but Matic was the left back. Rodak and goal. That's pretty much. There's not a huge amount of change or variation there, is there?
I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't change, actually. Rodak they like. They do talk about, he's Slovakian and he's on the fringes of the national team. He's a youth. He's 22. He's been in the under-21s and he was on loan with them last season as well. The only criticism they make of him is that one of them said he punches more than Joe Buckner. So they like he's got that reflexive habit and balls that come in which are catchable, and they notice that some opponents will often move players to the edge of the penalty area in anticipation of these punches coming out to them. So it's a small tactical detail to watch out for. But yeah, Wood and Ajayi. Wood, I'm going to use the dark words. First of all, the good thing is he's 33 now. He lacks pace, and that's a constant thing that comes up. He's too
never
slow.
had it though. I remember in Cov City, and he wasn't quick then either.
Coventry, yes, he was a Coventry man. That's right. I even highlighted it on my notes. He played for Coventry. Hashtag Coventry. However, and I say these words with its appropriate amount of darkness, he carries a threat attacking from set pieces.
Yes.
And that
there was
is
some early goals for him in the season, wasn't there? Wasn't there a last-minute winner? I forget the fixture, but I think he had an important goal in the playoff semi-final as well, if I remember rightly as well, perhaps.
He did against Scunthorpe. He did. Yeah. Did. Classic Heart of Oak defender. Does well against big, rough and tumble forwards, but gets run around by quicker ones. So him and Keane could have a good afternoon knocking lumps out of each other. The other player who they think will. Who's the lookalike, and this is the ghost of Lincoln past, Sean Raggett, who's on loan from Norwich. He played for that Lincoln team that roughhoused us a few years ago in the FA Cup. They think he is eventually. They'd like him to become permanent there if they could. They said he's not been fit. A few of them have been carrying knocks, and he's been in and out of the team as a consequence. But they reckon he will be fit enough. He had an ankle injury in September, but they said in a couple of weeks he'll be fit enough to kick one or two about properly. And another one
play as well, won't he?
Exactly, and another one from the school of Lincoln. He's good at attacking headers. So you can remember him and Matt Reed. There's a name. So yes,
still there, isn't he, Matt Reed?
Still there.
He is. The Everton game.
He's still there.
He's still there.
Yeah. God, if ever there was a unit. Bless him. But anyway, so they're the two kind of slow and steady, but Semi Ajayi has been a regular as well. He can actually switch out to right back as well, and a lot of them, or actually a lot of them, would love to see him in midfield, because when he has his mad moments and basic errors, if you make them in midfield, you've got the back four behind him to actually cover. But when he makes them as a centre back, then things go haywire. This was talked about back in August. I remember Ben and I, we did the preview show, was one of the first ones we did, and they'd only played Brentford at that stage, so that was the only game we had to go on.
They thumped, didn't they, as well?
It was Brentford in the sunshine in August. You do not want to go there. It was 5-1. But Ajayi does have mad moments where he passes the ball straight to opponents. He will do that occasionally. But they actually think he could play out wide because he's very good at receiving the ball. Generally, he's comfortable with the ball. He likes to play, and he will take a touch. He's that type of defender. But anyway, the other player who might come, and they have been pairing these two lately, is a guy called Clark Robertson. Clark Robertson, get the surname right, forgive me. He's ex-Aberdeen, and he was a free agent signing from Blackpool in the summer, and he's come into the team. He's been quite a regular, and they see him as a good long-term prospect. He could be the ultimate. Him and Ajayi is the kind of the 2-year plan, I would say. Left-sided,
Yep.
good, but the thing he has got is pace. He's able to cover, and he's steady, calm, and composed as well. Sorry, Rich, we're going to say.
I was just going to. Sorry,
Yeah.
it was just a thought on Ajayi and Woods, and I was recalling the game, the 1-0 game back from August, and how Caden Jackson came on. I think that was his debut as well, because I think he signed in the same week. And how they sussed him out really quickly, actually.
Yeah.
And that was quite a good pairing, Ajayi, where they seemed to have good understanding. Ajayi, I think, a bit more mobile, would have been more smart, so the first yard is in the head. And because Jackson was so isolated as a one up top, I think they figured him out quite quickly. So, but Raggett, as we've said, if he's fit, Norwich, he might fancy it, mightn't he?
Yeah. I think it'd be more the kind of trying to relive those ghastly 2 cup matches. God, it's not good.
The anniversary of those, actually. The fullbacks. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, just briefly on Lincoln, I remember when we played them, because I thought, oh God, a non-league team, the forums are going to be really quiet, and I went over there, and they were as busy as hell. They'd lots to say. They were full of it, and they were having this storming season in the conference, and everybody was getting involved, and I had more material than I knew how to work with. I was trying to sift it all, and I thought, oh, this is really reassuring. But I have to say, after being on there for the first game, and then they'd drawn, and then came the second game, I was happy to say goodbye to them. They were just so full of themselves, and so not in a nasty way. They were just so up for everything. Isn't life brilliant? And we're beating the world. And I was thinking, oh God, go away.
Yeah, come on, let's bring it down to our level.
Yeah, absolutely. You need a bit of cynicism in the world sometimes. I just remember that from Lincoln. It was a unique thing. I just thought, oh God, thank God they're not in our league. You couldn't handle that twice a season. You really couldn't. But
stop being so happy, everyone.
Yeah. Well, let's not. As I said, the ghost of Lincoln past. Let's hope it isn't the ghost of Lincoln future. Anyway, fullbacks.
Fullbacks. Yeah. Sorry.
Moving on to fullbacks. Yes. Moving on to fullbacks. So Mattock and Viner played in August. Yeah, Mattock is grown into the season, no question. They like him. Ex Sheffield Wednesday, I think Leicester and West Brom too. He's had a good. He's one thing I'll say, Warren, about him. They do play this very solid shape of 2 lines of 4, and sometimes a 4 and a 5 if it comes to it, if they're sort of battening the hatches down. But Warren does like his fullbacks to get forward. That's very much part of the model, and Mattock does fit in with that. He definitely likes to join attacks. He does occasionally have, though, they call them where am I moments, where he'll suddenly stop and realize, oh right, hang on, now what's going, look around, okay, right, okay, all right, hang on, and that usually involves having to leg it back pretty quickly.
Yes.
But he can get drawn out of position and dawdle on the ball, but generally solid. Allowing for a few iffy spells, but generally they're happy. He's kind of blossomed as the season has gone on. Zach Viner, on the other hand, he's got a mistake in him, this guy. But this lovely quote: "We should send him back to Bristol City. He's on loan from Bristol City. He's on loan from the Robins. We should send him back to Bristol City and get Josh Emmanuel back. He's a far superior player." That did raise the questions of the fact that, in fact, we have 3 right backs at the moment in the club. Am I wrong?
Yeah. Yes.
And we're playing one of them. That's fine. I'll leave it at that.
Yes.
And we're regularly sticking with the one. But that's a real conundrum. It's a bit like Donassian. What are we? Lambert, to be fair, this came up. Lambert sees Donassian as a centre back.
Yeah, I'm not sure he rates him at all. Actually, I think that's code for. I don't think he's up to it.
Right.
Because I don't think he fancied him at Villa.
Maybe we're all wrong. I don't know. It's maybe we're all wrong. But Josh Emmanuel's another one. He's got a medal from. He got promoted with them. He's got a League One championship medal. So
So I
forgot.
blame you could blame Hurst for that. I don't know why
Yeah,
Hurst didn't give him a chance
yeah,
because he should have known him from
yeah.
League One, shouldn't he?
He should have. Yeah,
I'm
but
disappointed. I think Josh Emmanuel is probably going to end up leaving the club. Actually, he might get a chance if we go down, but
yeah,
I feel really, yeah, that he's been hard done by because a couple of iffy games here and there,
yeah,
but 5 good ones and 1 bad one. He's bombed out of the team. Mick did that at the Brighton game, didn't he? We talked about that
yeah,
before. I feel really sorry for
yeah.
Josh Emmanuel. I think he could do a job for us at right back right now, but
Yeah. Well, again, he
he
he he
can't.
offers that athleticism that we need, and
Mm.
given and I know. Put it this way: if we have a right back in the club who's already having moments where he completely switches off, I don't think Josh Emmanuel could necessarily do any worse. We'll leave
Exactly
it at that,
right.
and we'll leave it there. But talking about right back switching off, we have Zach Viner. Now, this guy he always stands a yard off his man and usually invites a cross. I was to say Knudson's face did come into my head when I read that one. But he is another modern day fullback who likes to push forward, but he loses concentration for 10 minutes every game. And the killer comment was, you could put a brick wall in front of Viner to mark, and he would still get on the wrong side of it. So, which is, God, fans they can be horrible about their own
I love
players,
the
but
imagery though. That's brilliant.
yeah, exactly, the ultimate static player, and you still end up on the wrong side. Plan B, and I don't think he'll play because he has there's been a fitness issue with him all season. I think he's had an ongoing hamstring problem. Is Billy Jones, and Ben and I talked about
Oh,
this.
from Sunderland. Yeah.
Sunderland, yes. The famous comment was he played against Bristol City because Viner was obviously parent club. He couldn't play, and he got a red card, but it wasn't a malicious one. It was 2 yellows because of lack of fitness.
Oh, he
He
was pulling
he
back, was
caught
he, or something?
he put what the second was a pullback. The first one was he caught someone late, not maliciously, but it was a tug and it was a yellow. Yeah, but it was a bit there was nothing nasty about it. No, the famous comment for him was back in Sunderland last year when they were just savaging their players, and they talked to one of their Sunderland fans talked about seeing a Greg's carrier bag blowing around the pitch with a better positional sense than Billy Jones,
Oh,
which
poor Billy Jones.
the poor Billy. That's
I
really
quite liked him at West Brom. I
it's
thought he was quite a good player, but
yeah, he was a free agent. They got in,
yeah,
but
he's a free
you
man.
could see why they wanted him as well because he could offer some experience, whereas
Mm.
Viner really is the epitome of rawness. So I don't know in terms of getting change, out of them. If you have just looking at if we do play Quaner and Dawkins, you'd have Dawkins going up possibly on the left against Viner, and Quaner would actually give Matter quite a good get. Suddenly we're looking if solid, decent left back. Suddenly we could actually turn him over, whereas possibly with Green Edwards, you'd say, well, less likely, with
No,
someone like
especially after Saturday's showing.
yeah, yeah, Quaner going up against him. That's interesting. Was he another one? Let's look back into that. I'm trying to work out who the players Lambert was talking about who felt didn't necessarily have a long-term view, time club. Uh,
A future
a long-term
yeah,
future in the club, exactly. And it seems it's not necessarily players who did anything obviously bad, but is it a question of players who didn't actually
show up.
establish place their personality on the game? Because
Absolutely, yeah. I thought
and
that
and
I had expectations of Gwyn Edwards
yeah,
when I saw he was playing
yeah,
because he's been kind of bombed out of the team. Had a really good
mm,
start to the season, but has really flattered to deceive
yeah,
since probably September, October onwards.
yeah,
Had moments, didn't he? I think he had an okay game at Swansea. He did nothing of note at all on Saturday.
yeah,
There were a few moments where he started kind of doing one of those mazy dribbles and maybe beat one man, and then Accrington figured him out. They got 3 men around the ball, and he had
mm,
nowhere to go. Didn't
that's it.
release the ball either. And I didn't want to. I don't like calling out players on the pod, but I tried to do it on Sunday in a very subtle way. But I wouldn't be surprised if Gwyn Edwards we don't see a huge amount of him for
Yeah,
the remainder of the season, particularly because we brought in Dawkins, Quaner, and we've got Lancaster, who's contributing more now, isn't he?
yeah,
And Sears can play out there too.
yeah,
So I wouldn't be surprised to see Gwyn Edwards bombed out, and I wouldn't be surprised if that comment might include him.
yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, it's because I wondered whether poor old Flynn Downs was one myself, because again, you were looking for somebody who was going to impose themselves on the game, and you sense Downs tried to impose himself, but it possibly did it in an inexperienced way and imposed himself in the
Yeah,
wrong way. Yeah,
because Joe was saying, I don't know if I had this chat with Joe at the game, or he was part of the chat. He was saying that Downs has had those moments before in youth football, and Luton fans, I think, used to talk about it as well.
Yeah.
That he'd got a red card in him because he's the red mist descends.
The feistiness, yeah.
And you'd have thought that, given he's played for Luton and had a loan there, half a season loan, I think it was.
That's right. Yeah.
But he would have figured that one out. That
yeah.
League One players will find any, because on a footballer to footballer basis, Downs has probably got the best pedigree, having come through our academy, than someone who's maybe come up through the leagues. But if you can find a mental edge, or you can put them off the game, then they'll take that, won't they? And I don't think it wasn't particularly crude what they were doing to Downs, but I'd say he's been alright, Downs. I wouldn't be surprised if he's got a pivotal role to play, but he's got to get his head sorted out. Definitely.
Yeah. It's because opponents will work on that as well. It's that thing of strength taken to excess, isn't it? Sometimes that can become a weakness where you're good at, you've one aspect to your game that the team needs, but if you overdo it, then it can rebound on you.
And there'll be a silly free kick conceded every game from Downs as well. That's something I've started to notice recently as well. Let's go back to Rotherham and let's talk about their midfield. So for the away defeat, it was another bank of four. I think it was Taylor at right mid with Volks, Palmer central mid, and Newell out on the left. But he's brought in a couple. So Ryan Manning and I've forgotten Towell's first name. You'll have to help me out there.
Richie Towell.
Those have come in subsequently, but he's lacking options there, isn't he? And there's a bit of a makeshift style to midfield at the moment.
They've effectively. It's a lot of fans describe it as a 4-5-1. They've got, as I say, Volks and Palmer, and they've got three central midfielders. But something that's been frustrating the fans is with Manning and Towell were both players who could break forward. They had more of a touch of the playmaker about them and could actually link up with the striker. But with one's gone back to Queen's Park Rangers, one is suspended, so therefore they're having to improvise. And Warren has come up with what he calls the three wingers. Well, the fans are calling it the three wingers system, and they hate it.
It's like Keane's back four of centre backs.
Exactly that. Actually, that's a good way of putting it. It's hideous. It really frustrates them. What they're saying about it, it's bizarre, and it doesn't work because they end up sitting too deep. It lacks imagination and creativity, and it's too light in midfield. Rather than having a playmaker by playing a winger through the centre, it's almost a mirage. It doesn't give you anything. And the other thing is that wingers are better off. They're out in the wing because they've got more space to play with. You drop them into the centre, there's traffic all around them, particularly in that number 10 type role, and they just get snarled up.
Presumably there's drifting out of position as well, because actually there's a role for a central midfielder to defend as well, isn't there?
Yes,
so presumably that they're not so hot on that stuff too.
Yeah, that's less of a concern, but it is there definitely. But it's more the lack of support to the striker, because whereas as a winger there's less tactical sophistication to it in a way. You've got two options: you go wide or you cut in. When you're playing as a playmaker, the level of vision that's needed, and the level of anticipation, you're trying to work out where the spaces are going to come in a much wider way, and it's a whole different. Even though you're only 10 yards away, you're playing a whole different game. Let's deal with the central midfielders, the kind of guys who will be more inclined to sit, and they're fairly straightforward. Will Volks scored an absolute thunderbolt of a free kick against Preston, and he calmed the team down. He's not Scottish. He came from Falkirk. I think he came up through Tranmere. I think he's Liverpudlian, but he's from that neck of the woods anyway. But he does the simple stuff well. The criticism of him is the Hollywood passes. They drive them mad. He seems to have he just has this moment, this beatific vision, and off he'll play something, and it just doesn't. And often it can rebound because it can be telegraphed, and an opponent suddenly gets a 25-yard telegraph ball, and therefore they're effectively in possession and in space, and you can be in trouble. So that's one criticism. But Volks he's the steady Eddie of the midfield. Matt Palmer's interesting. He's expert in Albion, and now how old is Palmer? He is 23, and they see him. He's one of these players who's really good with the ball. He's tidy. He doesn't waste possession and works hard. But without the ball, he's more problematic. He's lightweight. He doesn't. He can't boss it physically. They talk about him having trouble breaking out of a paper bag, that kind of thing. You know, very,
Yeah.
very. He's good with the ball in the middle. And he'll free Volks to find better shooting positions. So he acts as a foil to Volks in that sense. But when there are teams coming through against him, he can be a bit lightweight, and they'll just lightweight, indecisive, and ineffective was the word they'd used. So they're the two that they both played back in August. But the other player who needs mentioning, and this, or anybody who's going to be at Portman Road, keep an eye out for this guy, Ben Wiles, youth product, teenager. The key comment they said about him was he is for now, not the future. They really, really like him. He was their man of the match against Manchester City. They think he's a box-to-box midfielder in his nature. But that he's very energetic and up and down rather than a net playmaker. But this was an absolute telling comment. They said he ran through some of the Manchester City players as if they did not exist.
Wow.
So the
High
fearlessness of youth as well.
Yeah.
They think he could grow into one of the best players they've produced in a long time. Early days, but let's keep an eye. The one other little thing they picked out was his touch. They think he's got a really lovely touch. He was scoring goals for fun apparently in their under-23s before he broke into the team. But I think he might have. He's been used as a bench option as well, I think, earlier in the season. But they actually think he's the breakthrough player. One of them thought that it was going to be Matt Palmer, but in fact, it looks like Wiles is the one who's going to come through.
A possible starter, do you think?
Yeah, I would say so. Absolutely. I'm just looking what's he started recently.
If he's man of the match, or man of the match from Saturday.
He started the last three actually. He started Bristol City, he started Preston, and he started against Man City. So yeah, no, he'd watch out for him. It's just one of those players, a bit like when Maddison came over from Norwich that time, a bit unheralded. Nobody was thinking about him, but in fact he turned out to be the most eye-catching player. So keep an eye out for him. Out wide. Now, there's an interesting mix. They've got four wingers, so they're not short in numbers. And it's a question of who's going to come through the middle. Williams is the classic. Ryan Williams is right winger. He's a danger man, energetic, decent feet, lots of pace, great engine. Harry's attacking is everywhere, but he never looks like he's going to score. he's a classic. It's the end product again. It's
I was
the
about
old
to
thing.
say, I'm looking through the goals from their midfield, and there are not many. And I'm looking at Richie Towell's got 3.
Yeah.
Taylor's got 2, and I think that's about it. So it's about creativity rather than getting on the end of stuff, isn't it?
It is, yeah. They like him, but it drives them mad because Warren tries to play him through the middle, and they actually think he is the one. Warren says he likes William in the number 10 position, but not many people agree. He's stifled in the centre role. It was what we were talking about a little bit earlier. They'd prefer him out wide. However, they would prefer to see John Taylor come in through the middle. Because he's more he's a keen and willing worker. He can't actually put in a cross. He's actually very poor defensively. But they would see him in a free role because he has got pace and he could cause more problems than Williams. He's got a little bit more imagination to him. It sounds like he shouldn't be a winger from the way they describe him. He's so quick and gets in all the right positions, but does nothing with the ball in the end. He lacks nous when defending, and there's not enough variation to his attacking game out wide. So hard to know. But I wouldn't be surprised if Taylor is out wide and Williams is playing through the centre. Anthony Ford is the other. If they go with this three winger approach. Didn't have him as Millwall. Let me check. I had him as Walsall. No. Ford is the goalkeeper for Millwall.
Oh, that was it. Sorry, yeah.
That's it. No. He was the one who was Shay Given's understudy for 824 years. Never got a game. It was really. He did in the end. Given eventually decided to retire. Probably a bit too late as well. But no. Ford is Wolves and Walsall. He is Irish again. He's 25-year-old winger. He's on the left. Now they think this is a rather odd thing. They praise this guy to bits for his defensive work. I've never seen anything like it. Our best winger when it comes to defending and covering back, and he does have a good dead ball delivery. But it's all about the work he does in supporting his fullback. Ad nauseum. I'm thinking, well, if he's that good, what's he doing as a winger?
Yes.
And the unspoken bit, they said, I wonder if there's a question mark about his pace. None of them said it, but what they did talk about was that when he does come on, if he doesn't start or when he plays, it tends to invite more pressure, and it totally omits our chance to break out quickly. So I wonder if there's a question mark about his pace.
Maybe
But
he'll
he
end
could,
up being a fullback.
yeah, he could end up, yeah, he could be, or a wing back. He could be one of those players who can shore up the side of the pitch. But he's very conscientious. And the other player, and this is the other odd one, Joe Newell. Because I was checking his age. I think he's 25, ex-Peterborough, obviously. And the problem with him is they think he's actually a decent playmaker, but he's not very, very quick. So he could be the one to switch into the centre. But the common thing that comes up is about, one of them said, why is Newell completely exhausted after about 60 minutes? Something isn't right there. This happens all the time. He's very anonymous when he starts, but he's got a good 20 minutes in him. And he has got real championship quality, even if it is occasionally hit and miss. But for some bizarre reason, he can't keep it going for more than 20 minutes in a game. It's really and I was looking up thinking, oh, he must be 33 or 34. He's not. He's mid-20s. So that's an interesting one.
I seem to recall, I think he had a couple of shots, long-range efforts, I think,
yeah,
from that 1-0 game. That rings a bell there.
Mm-hmm.
Then up front, there was a 2 in the game in August. It was Cole Vassell and Matt Smith.
Michael Smith. Michael Smith,
who scored the goal.
He did.
I listened back to the previous preview show, and excuse me, and I think you used the phrase or similar, good touch or good feet for a big unit, for a big guy, and his feet were quick, weren't they, for the goal? Actually, it did drop to him, but I think that was something that you read that the Rotherham fans said about him.
Yeah, that is really weird because that's what I've written down here. Actually,
there you go.
I said that is prescient. That really is. There's a touch of Darryl Murphy about him. Actually, they say as well. He works hard. A one-man band alone up front. One of the things that frustrates him, and this is something to watch out for, is he will drift wide to pick up a long ball that's played through to him if they're trying to relieve pressure, because they will go long, obviously, as a hold-up player. But the problem is he goes wide for the ball, and then there's nobody breaking through the centre. So therefore, he's out there wide with the ball, and he's kind of waiting for it, looking at his watch, seeing if anybody's going to put in an appearance so he can do something with it.
No one.
Yeah, exactly. But he's very selfless, and he's so reminded me of Murph the way they described him. He is much. They think he needs a quicker striker to play alongside him. He does need a foil to work off, but utterly selfless. His hold up play is good, but he ends up on his own, endlessly chasing a lost cause. He's come through the lower leagues. I think Swindon, Portsmouth. I was trying to remember if he played in the cup game against us. I don't think he did, but Bury was the most recent team. Vassell, as I say, the two there's two players who are technically strikers who could play with him in a more withdrawn role, but I'm not sure either are going to feature. A quick mention to each, because they're both very similar. There's Jamie Proctor, who came from Bolton, and then there's Kyle Vassell, who did play in that game.
Who's got no goals so far this season?
No. But both of them have had injury problems. Proctor's hip, Vassell's groin, and I think, but both have a similar type. They're both aggressive in your type players. That's the way they operate. They're players who put themselves around, and they'll rough teams up, make a nuisance of themselves, that type of thing. But both of them, they may feature. If they do, I would think it would be off the bench at most. But we'll see. As I say, players obviously keep that stuff very, very much under wraps, so we've no idea. So they're the plan Bs, but it's very much about Michael Smith up front. That's that's where the real.
So we think likely a 4-5-1 of some kind.
Yeah, so 4-4-5-1 with a winger in the middle.
And as we mentioned, sorry, go on.
Or possibly, can Wilds play in the middle? Because even if he is box to box, he could be the player to break forward.
Maybe as a number 10, perhaps. As well.
That's a number 10 to link as well.
Yeah.
How they set it up. Yeah. Interesting to look at. There's as I say, very much hard to beat. Don't be surprised if it's a cagey one. Don't be surprised if it starts out quietly, if that's possible, because that's what they will set out to achieve. So hopefully we can get in amongst them early and just knock that centre of gravity out of place, and then suddenly, hopefully 1 or 2 goals up. That would be the hope.
It's on us, isn't it? We have to take the games to them.
Yeah. You have just a quick mention, Rich. Your shirts, because this is a good time to mention them if we can land a blow on them. 2
playoff shirts. So
yes, indeed.
This one is this is from the 4-3 victory against Rotherham, Hormone Road, where Paul Hurst played for Rotherham, and I think that was the Jamal Campbell-Rice game.
Yes.
And I think it all but relegated Rotherham that season.
Yeah.
And this one is from the 14-15 season. I think that's our last
Yeah.
home win.
It's our last win over them.
Because
Yeah.
actually, if you recall, we lost 1-0. Leon Best scored in the
Yeah.
last time I think we played in Pullman Road. So
Yeah.
and Mick did them a favour. No, that's a joke. So yeah, some Rotherham victories behind us.
Yes, indeed.
One thing I was going to say, we're recording this kind of midweek. Usually it's a little bit later in the week. There was some chat on the local press for Rotherham that they might make signings before the weekend, but there's no names as yet been mentioned. So hopefully nothing too fundamental changes. But that's the Rotherham team. Thank you for that, Harry. And let's talk about Darrell's team, shall we? This combined 11. We have two 11s. We have a 22. So we're going to have a face-off.
Yes.
Have you got them in front
I've got
of you?
I've got them up in front of me here. Yep, I do indeed. So starting off, goalkeepers, we've got Scott Loach and David Stockdale. He's going to kind of gone. There's an A and a B-ish team. I think that's the way Darrell set it up. I sensed. I don't know if he was going for Loachy, but I would probably have Stockdale myself over Loach.
Yep.
But
Yeah,
I don't know if you'd agree with that.
Yep.
Right backs, there was Josh Emmanuel.
Oh, there he is.
Here he is, indeed, funnily enough. And because I think Ben suggested, he said, I expected to see him in there. So he was ever diligent. Darrell made sure he was in. And Zachy Friars was the other one. I'd go with Josh over Zachy Friars. I think Friars is flaky. On the left side, a Troy Brown versus Danny Collins. I think that might have been, was that a needs must, Danny at left back?
Possibly. I thought Danny Collins was a left back. Well,
No, you're right. No, forgive
Troy
me.
Brown is
Troy Brown. No. It's we have to. These ones are the left back ones were a conundrum for me. Collins.
What are you thinking?
No, I'm just trying to work out which would be the best one to play. Probably Collins.
I would go Collins, I think.
Yeah, you go Collins. Yeah, okay.
The centre backs.
No, the centre backs.
Industrial.
They're very industrial. No, will we get on? Will we get onto the strikers? There's a memorable strike pairing coming up. So you've got Richard Naylor, Brian Gale, Chris Swales, and Phil Whelan. Phil Whelan
didn't
is
look
a
like
name.
a footballer to me, but one of those ones who just doesn't look like a footballer.
It's got a Naylor and Gale. It's got to be. I would have thought myself.
Okay.
So that's what I'd have thought. But see what people think. Now, right midfield. Here's the mother of all choices: Grant Ward versus Paul Taylor.
Paul Taylor probably won't. He'll have a dental issue. Won't play. So
exactly. Yeah. So he'll be out.
Home.
Yeah, I'd go with Ward on that one every time. Really, to be honest, I don't think you could disagree. And on the other side, it's another weird. These are both of recent vintage. Tom Lawrence versus Ben Pringle is the option there. And again, I think Pringle, I always felt, with the hair and everything, you thought, oh God, this guy could be really interesting and very vibrant, but not really. No. He did flatter to deceive a bit. Yeah, really. So again, I think we'll put Tom Lawrence in there. There's no argument really. Now, actually, these two will have played together. You've got Luke Hyam and Grant Ledbetter. And in central midfield, and then the other two were Tumani Diagoraga and Paolo Vernazza.
We had a bit of a chat about Vernazza on Twitter. The big omission there, and I endorse Darrell's omission here, is Tom Adeyemi, because I don't think we've seen him enough in an Ipswich shirt to include him.
Darrell, forgive me for quoting you. I've written down in brackets, Darrell wonders if he exists. Yes, indeed. That kind of, he's sort of wandering around in the land of Nod. Yeah, there was Anthony Wordsworth was also there. I think he dropped him out. Darrell didn't like Wordsworth. Wordsworth was one of those players who looked brilliant on the YouTube videos. Do you remember with all the free kicks, the set piece, Colchester? Oh God, this guy's really good, and didn't quite happen. It was
a really good book. I'll have to look it up. A book about football scouts. I think it's Michael Calvin, is it? Is it The Forgotten Men or something like that?
Yes, it's The Forgotten Men, yeah.
That talks about someone scouting Anthony Wordsworth and saying that he kind of is one of those players that is quite happy to be a big fish in a small pond. And so as soon as we gambled on him, I think a lot of teams looked at it and didn't go for it. And I think because we were nearby and because it was a low fee, I think that's why we went for it. But he was very much a League One player, wasn't he? Very happy to be the big man at Colwell. It didn't work out for him. Pullman Road did it. The front pair, though, I like in the A team. Though,
just quickly, Hyam and Ledbetter. We're happy with those two as our two.
So. There's a good mix. Isn't
there? That's a good mix. I think that the ones, they're good foils for each other. Yeah, okay, go for it. Go for it. Front pair. Go for it.
Well, Kiefer Francesco Roberto Moore, Alan Lee.
Jesus, I'm looking at that thinking that's brilliant. There's a strike pair, those two up front together. My lord, that would be superb.
It'll
With
be an
Lawrence,
aerial bombardment, won't
it
it?
would be. You have Lawrence coming down the wing. You've got Grant Ward down the other side. Ledbetter as well. He could break forward as well and play a clever diagonal ball into them. It would just that with those two. I looked at it and went, bloody hell! Those two on the same team sheet together, Lee and Moore, they'd work off each other. It would work as well. It really would. Those two.
And in reserve, Connor Salmon, Earl John,
Salmon,
which I don't
Earl
know.
John.
And Leon Best is thereabouts as well. Though
No,
I suspect
no,
you could say the
he's
same
not.
about Adeyemi for Best.
No, nowhere near the team that guy. No way, no way. Connor Salmon, God, we've talked about this before about Derby fans' reaction to him. If ever there was a player for whom the word ricochet was named,
but he scored. I've seen it. I saw him score against us for Rotherham.
No, that was the thing. They said before one of the games, I did the notes and I was it was an open goal. One of them was saying that in Rotherham before it was did he score twice against us? Or was it a 2-0? It was a 2-0 anyway. But I remember they. Correct us if we're wrong on that, but there was one of the Rotherham fans before that game talked about him in the warm-up, and he was basically a danger to everyone in the stand behind the game. He was hitting old ladies, anybody with their bovril. You just didn't go near the place. They said he was absolutely lethal. So I was having a laugh, going, "Ha ha! Ha, good old Connor Salmon. That's just what we want to see." And then he just went and popped up. I know he scored at least one, if not two,
I think
against us.
one.
Yeah.
That was not a good day.
Yeah. No, it was not. No.
So Daryl again has done some amazing homework there.
Phenomenal stuff.
Darryl.
Yeah.
And we'll ask. And by the time this goes out, it'll probably have been retweeted as well. So let us know if we've missed anyone. There are some. Paul Green's another one that didn't get quite in there. Fraser Richardson as well.
Richardson as well. Yeah. Good. Great names. Thank you, Daryl.
Cheers, Daryl.
Alan Lee and Kiefer Moore.
What we would give for those, probably even now.
God, we worth the admission money alone for those two. Yeah, great fun.
Let's do some questions, Harry.
Yeah.
This is ironic given what we've just talked about earlier. Is Flynn's Downs underrated? Asks Arthur Pickthorne. He's 19 years old and playing a key position for a side lacking in confidence and belief. Doing a brilliant job for me and a certain future captain. I think we probably have some reservations about that statement, do we? Not
sure about the captain yet. He does offer the leadership that the team needs, but it's very misdirected at the moment. He's a keeper for me. I wouldn't let him go based on what happened at Accrington. But the wider game, I think he's long. I think he is a really good long-term prospect. But he needs Skuse in there. He needs a Jedi. He's a good Padawan. He needs a Jedi in there with him to give him. Just to ground him, really, I would say more than anything else.
I think was it you? I think you asked a question to the flagship show about do we miss Chambers? I think my answer was I think we missed Skuse actually on Saturday in Accrington, and hopefully Skuse is back on Saturday. We won't talk about the other midfielder who may or may not make a return, according to Lambert. It's not Adeyemi, but it's the other one. So I think I agree with Arthur that Downs is playing well. Still got a bit to go, but certainly I think underrated. I'm not sure Ipswich fans underrate him, but certainly a lot more to do before perhaps we consider him as captain material. Harvey Davies, given Lambert's post-match Accrington comments regarding some players leaving and the fact we've signed 2 strikers, do you see a future for Jackson, or could he be on his way out? So we talked about Gwion Edwards. Caden Jackson was a bit isolated. I don't think that was his fault on Saturday, but I think we view Dawkins and Kwana and Pilkington. The Pilkington deal look like has fallen through. They're all wingers, though, aren't they, rather than forwards? Would we say?
Yeah. No, I can't see him going. I could see he's an impact sub. He's an impact sub for me. He is somebody to throw on either as a 1 or as a 2. He could work possibly with Keane. Depends how it works out on the training ground over the next month, I would say. But I given our paucity of firepower up front, and he does have flashes in him. He scored 2. We've seen, I saw the Brentford goal, and that was a moment of there was a flash of real quality there. So no, I'd want him to stay. I think there is something there, but he was just ruinously served by the 4 leading goal scorers from last year not being there, and suddenly being put in and asked to lead the line himself. That's
absolutely right.
You can't do that. So I think him and Harrison, I wouldn't let any of them go at the moment. But just to say, we'll see what Lambert does. I think a lot will come out in the training ground. I think once they work together.
What's your thoughts on? So Freddie Sears has now missed a couple of really important chances in the last 2 matches. What do you think of Freddie? I don't think Freddie will be sold. I think he's really important for us. But do you think he might be rested at some point in the near future?
Well, with the 2 who've come in, I can see him being being switched in with probably on the left hand side. I would have thought with Dawkins. There's a thing with Freddie. in every club he's been, if a West Ham fan said this to me, Kevin, he's a mate, he's a West Ham fan. He said, Freddie goes to a club, he is brilliant for the first. He'll have a brilliant first couple of months, a brilliant first 6 months, whatever. He'll go off like a house on fire, and then it'll suddenly go quiet. And I wonder whether we've just had a little bit of that now, where he's gone out, and when he plays instinctively, it all starts happening for him, and then he suddenly goes in on himself. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. It's just a theory. I love Freddie. He's utterly, and he was, we have been ill-served. I mean, the few experienced players we have, like Ward, Skuse, have got injured. So, I mean, Freddie was Freddie and Bart, I think, were the only two with any real length of experience that you could trust at Accrington. So, we'll all cut Freddie a break. We really will. But that's the question mark I'd have, whether he's a bit like one of those fast bowlers in the Mike Brearley day, where you can bring him in for a concentrated spell, and then you take him back out again, and then bring him back in again, so he can
recalibrate and all that. Yeah, definitely, that's a great shout.
Just a thought.
Yeah, I agree with that. Our good friend Benjamin Bloom asks, if you had to put one Rotherham player into the Ipswich team, who would have the biggest punctuation, Ben. Who would have the biggest impact on this game? He also makes reference to February the 16th. I think something important's happening on the 16th of Feb, isn't it?
Curve Bar, indeed. Look, it's just over a month away. Get your tickets. They're selling out now, so it should be really good. After the Stoke game, irrespective of whether Stoke overcome Wolves or not, we're going to go for it anyway, so it should be a really good evening. And a few surprises, and maybe the odd ambush lined up as well. We'll see how the evening goes. It should be fun. Indeed.
Fingers crossed for Shrewsbury, eh? That's not right. Shrewsbury beating Stoke first before Wolves.
Good point. Yeah, actually, yes.
So I was, in terms of the players in the Rotherham team that we might want to... maybe Smith up front. I was looking at the right back, but we're not massively keen on the right back, are we?
You go Smith. Smith, yeah, that's an obvious one. I have to say, I looked at Rodak.
Oh, really? Okay.
I looked at the keeper. I just thought 12 months ago I wouldn't have even gone there, but I just think Rodak, I'd probably have. Thank you very much. Yep, I'll have you. Yep. That's my view. Anyway, there we go.
Each end of the pitch, very good.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the question about right backs. Jack Barham. Or Barham. What right back do we get in to replace Spence? And then there's a bit of chat about Wolfenden's back at the club, I think. One theory that I've got, Jack, is Enciala did okay. We did talk about maybe him ball watching for the goal, but do you shove Chambers out at right back maybe? Or is he going to keep going with Spence?
Well, Chambers doesn't have the legs now that he had when he was out there last. But that thought flashed across me when you asked the question. I said, if he's not going to play Donatien out there, if he's not going to play Josh Emmanuel, possibly. But the problem is, you take Chambers out of the heart of the defence, and then you don't have him in the heart of the defence, and he does provide that stability. I don't know who else I don't know who else we're scouting there, but I would scout a right back if none of the 2.5 that we have, assuming Donatien isn't one, I'd call him a half of one, if they're not up to it, because Spence certainly isn't. I don't know why he doesn't give Emmanuel a run. I really don't, because if it is a question of just having absent-minded moments, well, we already have one of those, and
at least one a game.
Yeah. But as I say, we don't know what's going on in the training ground, so we don't know how Josh is doing. But he didn't just do it over a flash of games, over 3 or 4. He did it over a whole season at Rotherham, and they would have him back, being no doubts. Yeah.
Do you think Gherkin or Bart? I don't think Bart did a huge amount wrong in the game, but would you stay loyal to Gherkin?
Fundamentally, I think Bart is a better natural goalkeeper than Gherkin. I think he is. But if there was that rotation, you could put Gherks back in again. Yeah, it's a hard question to answer, actually, Rich, when you ask us. Because both of them have question marks over them. As I said, I'd happily have Rodak over the pair of them at the moment, given their current form. So probably, out of loyalty to Gherkin and not wanting to rock the boat, if he is the league choice at the moment, put Gherks back in again. Yeah. But
I know I wouldn't be massively surprised if Spence is at right back on Saturday, everyone. Phil Marshall, Paul Lambert has clearly had to lower the quality of his January targets. Do you think this is due to budget constraints from Evans, or availability of the targets, or the target's lack of desire to move to us?
I'd say it's more the latter than the former because given that we've already got what we said it earlier. It's the ninth. We've already got 4 players in. We're not. That would suggest to me that we're not being tight on the money. That we're prepared to meet people. And I think Pilkington, the only reason he didn't come to us again was for geographical reasons rather than
Yeah,
financial
it
reasons.
was said
So
that the
I
financial package was better
yeah,
actually than we were
yeah,
offering.
yeah. I do think, to be fair to Evans, he is trying to unpick the mistake he's made. But in that sense, um, yeah, I think it's more players looking to want to come to us. We were joking about Quaner earlier, but he's obviously a bit of an original, but he's obviously got lots of personality, and he's the type of player who would relish coming here and going down in Ipswich folklore if he can actually dig us out of this mess or can play a part in it. So I think it's more that than it's more our perilous state trying to attract players necessarily rather than financial. Mm.
Um, our good friend Mrs. Nuts, do you both think we could have won the Accrington game had it been
I
played a
saw
quarter
this
round?
question. Hello, Mrs. Nuts. Hi, belated Happy New Year. No, I my instinctive response when I saw that was no. We'd have drawn the home game and lost the replay. It
Yeah,
would have been a 1-1 draw, and we'd have lost
it'd
one
be
nil
Lincoln
there.
again, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would have been Lincoln again. It would have been lost there on a Tuesday night, and it would have been live on the bloody BBC. They'd have taken it. So no, that answer got came straight into my head. That I have to say. Sorry.
A couple more of these.
Mm,
Let's um, shout out to Mullet, who I met up in the pub before Accrington, and Mark as well. If owners relegate clubs,
mhm.
that's we're going to get that on t-shirts. So I don't know if you heard that on Sunday.
I th-
The Harry from Bath quote. How pressing that is. Do
mm,
teams resemble their managers? Lambert has taken over a small, weak, inexperienced shambles of a team. He doesn't mention Paul Hurst's name there, but
mm.
when will it look like him? He seems to be adding presence and potential. No one else wants. Let me read this properly. He seems to be adding presence and potential no one else wants. Is that all he has to offer us? Not sure whether there's some words missing there that I didn't want. But in terms of Lambert fashioning the team in his own image, do you think he's getting there with these signings?
Yeah,
Um,
we said this before about him that he's trying to get the team playing in a certain model, a certain style of play, and ultimately the manager that he will. Ultimately, the team reflects the personality of the manager. It has to. That's the way it operates. When it starts working brilliantly is when the owners totally synchronize in on it, and that's why Wolves are doing so well in the top flight at the moment. You've got the Portuguese model of the owners, Mendes, whatever you say about him, the manager, and then the players, all working to the same philosophy. It's the same at Manchester City. It's the same at Barcelona. When you get dysfunction at any of those points, it can go wrong.
mm,
And they say, going back to the Lambert point, he is definitely trying to forge a team in with his personality. Normally, it takes managers 3 windows, so that's why you cut Lambert so much slack because he's trying to work with the mess he's inherited, the bits of broken pot on the floor, and he's putting them back, gluing them back together again. So you can not even see. We're only the 9th of January, and you can already see the formation of something with an identity taking place. But even if these players are gone in the summer, we have a sense of direction.
there was a question about whether Lambert, given he's starting to build a team, would leave because it's still not 100% watertight that he's going to stay. Is it? Would you say that the more scope he's given in January to strengthen, and the more he gets used to the club, the more likely he is to stay, Harry?
I'm more optimistic than I was a week ago, because Evans is definitely going out of his way to back him. I
Mm,
think he is, and in that sense, I'm hopeful. He walked from Blackburn over money. He had a
yes.
release clause. He just said, "You're not backing me. I'm out of here." And that's the following season they went down. And I think Evans has no choice but to desperately. He's got to hold on to him because the thought of this summer, if we do drop and without Lambert, it's I'm that would really worry me.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
A
Mm.
couple more bits and pieces. Tricky bit tricks, and this isn't a question. Actually, it is a question. Um, I want to know if Ronnie Moore is managing Darrell's combined Ipswich 11. I love this in there. It's a great shout. Um, I joked that Daryl had called up Ronnie Moore to ask if he was up for it, and he said yes, and then it turned out that he wasn't eligible. So thank you for bringing that one up, Tricky Matrix, and poor old Ronnie Moore, eh?
He's great. He's greatly admired by the club, though. Let's say that.
Yes, I'm sure he's doing a very good job wherever he is. And I want to know the person who's got a good Sheepshanks impression. I'm not going to ask you to do yours, Harry. Final question from Tim, our mate Tim. There's a loaded question here. If you could have one listener at the live event who can't make it because of Sky, who would it be? I think you want us to say you, don't you, Tim? So we'll say you.
Tim, no question.
Rotherham, will we get a Man City backlash? Thoughts on? I think they've disregarded the Man City game as a one-off, haven't they?
Yeah. The comments, there hasn't been much said on their site. The general tone was that the real game, the real business is against Ipswich. It was almost like a jolly. Just see what happens. Let's go out and have a day out.
Lovely brand new big stadium.
Big stadium, and it's all a bit of fun. But it was not. They didn't. They half took it seriously, and the fact they played with a good shape. They had to. The previous game to the Preston win was a 1-0 defeat at Bristol City when they were very competitive until Richie Towell got sent off after Billy Jones got sent off. So they were reduced to 9 men, and that's when Adam Webster scored the late winner for Bristol City. But they played with real personality in that game, the same tough nut to crack approach as they did against Preston. We will get that again. I think the City game was just an irrelevance from their point of view. I think if anything, Accrington may have done our confidence more damage than the Man City game did for Rotherham. Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Let's do some plugs. I've got a couple of announcements and housekeeping. Boots to Africa, the guys that collect footy shirts and football boots and send them over to kids in Africa. They're doing a collection this weekend in the fan zone. They're there from 1 o'clock on Saturday, and they're collecting donations for Astro boots, trainers, any kits or anything, football equipment, anything like that. Go and find the guys in the fan zone. And that's something that the Beat has supported in the past as well. So do look those guys up on Twitter. It's Boots to Africa with the number 2. But yeah, they'll be at the fan zone on Saturday from 1 p.m. and also making a reappearance on Saturday are the folks at Turnstile Blues, the 19th issue, edited by our good friend Steve Moore, and it's as positive as they could make it. It's still a quid, and as I said last time, I think when we did a plug for Turnstile Blues, I don't think you can get anything for a quid, and a nice tangible physical thing, a fanzine that exists in 2019 is a good thing as well. The main articles talk about Evans and this continued lack of visibility. There's a chat with the guys from Blue Action who are trying to improve the atmosphere and have been invited to the training ground by Paul Lambert to try and boost the kind of atmosphere on match days. They talk about the tickets, fan aid ticket purchase thing that happened at West Brom. That Carl Fuller led, some prospects of what faced us post-relegation should it happen, and there's some stuff about football and gambling as well. But Turnstile Blues are really useful, really good fanzine. Been asking some really good questions for quite some time. Give them your support. I think it sold out really quickly last time. So £1. They're usually around the Sir Alf Ramsey statue. So go and find them. Sometimes they might rock up at some of the pubs as well, but definitely outside the ground. So go and catch those guys there. Harry, do you want to do your plugs and tell us about your blog and Twitter?
Yes, indeed. It should go up Friday lunchtime on TWTD, and it will be linked on @HarryFromBath, so on my Twitter feed. So I'll automatically link it there. Pretty much covering similar ground to what we've done, but it will have more detail on formations, plus any more comments that they have. The one thing Rotherham fans were saying, just exactly as Millwall were saying, and I shouldn't draw the parallel, was it's even if it's not a must-win game, it's a must-not-lose game, because they don't want to let us. They don't want to let us back. I know we need snookers, but they don't want to let us back into a situation where we can clamber out of this. So, but there'll be more details. We'll see what else they have to say between now and Friday, and it'll all go up on TWTD Friday lunchtime.
Did you say your Twitter? Say again if you did.
Yes, at Harry from Bath.
Harry from Bath, brilliant.
Yeah.
I'll be going back for the game on Saturday, so I shall be hoping that we take the game to them. Frankly, we may as well. You know, what have we got to lose at this point?
Yeah.
You can find me at Ipswich, and I'm sure the channel. There's plenty of information and good stuff on the 16th of Feb at Blue Monday ITFC, and Ben and goodness knows Guinevere will throw up 2 extra people for the flagship show on Sunday. Harry, thank you again for all of your hard work and diligent research on Rotherham.
Cheers,
and
Rich.
yeah, we'll see each other next week.
See you next week, and have a great weekend, everyone.